It was totally out of step with reality for where most Americans are.
This could have been a course correction for his presidency, because this is a wounded presidency.
We're all waiting for this to frankly be a Ukraine sandwich, and then it didn't land there.
Much like 9/11, Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine is a this changes everything event.
President of the United States.
And it was with an expectation of that recognition that I watched President Biden's State of the Union speech. It didn't come.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Biden did speak stirringly on Ukraine's defensive effort, but then reverted to the domestic policy status quo ante for the Democratic Party.
My plan will ease long-term inflationary pressures.
Surely, in light of Putin's invasion and the already existing threat from China, spending on defense and national security need to rise significantly. On this, Mr. Biden said nothing. Then, in the progressive State of the Union response, we found out why.
We can't seek peace by continuing to spend $750 billion every year on weapons of war, making defense contractors and companies wealthier. We must put human rights and dignity first.
The Biden Democrats won't change course. They believe, and the U.S. president agrees, domestic needs and climate goals take primacy over any imaginable foreign threat.
While it shouldn't have taken something so terrible for people around the world to see what's at stake, now everyone sees it clearly.
That is the voice of leading from behind, and the price paid for leading from behind is often very high. Another subject Mr. Biden spoke about, which is related to the disorder Mr. Putin has turned loose, is domestic crime in American cities.
Let's not abandon our streets or choose between safety and equal justice.
Violence, murder, and theft have become routine because the police have become less willing to prevent disorder. Why might that be?
So we've been talking about defunding the police.
Behavior outside the boundaries of established civil order is, in essence, what has happened in Ukraine. Kyiv used to be like any big American city. Then Vladimir Putin obliterated the fine line between order and disorder, in the process explicitly threatening the post-war order of Europe itself. Mr. Putin, and no doubt China's Xi Jinping, see a West on the brink of political and moral decadence.
I said last year, especially to our younger transgender Americans, I'll always have your back as your president.
They see countries whose leadership has allowed marginal issues such as gender complexity and windmills to displace national self-preservation.
And so I hope President Putin will help us to stay on track with respect to what we need to do for the climate.
Before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, the suggestion that Germany could double its spending on defense was unthinkable. And yet, it's not like the signs were not already there. A year after Mr. Putin's annexation of Crimea in 2014, NATO's Secretary General met with President Obama and announced an about-turn in defense spending.
Stop the cuts in defense budgets and to start gradually to increase and to aim at 2%.
Unbelievably, for 16 years, most NATO members hadn't even been spending 2% of GDP on the alliance's common defense. This was Europe's equivalent of defund the police.
We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund the police.
And yet, despite the appearance of a change in attitude towards disorder in U.S. cities, Mr. Biden's phrases like equal justice and hold law enforcement accountable sound like progressive doublespeak.
Fund them with resources and training.
For now, Europe is learning a hard changes everything lesson. Here in the United States, we're shocked at the images from Ukraine. But whether we're willing to deter manifestly real external and internal threats to our security is not so clear. At least now we have a baseline for discussion. Do nothing and disorder descends.
Thank you. Go get him.